Okay, launched everything. So I think we have enough people, and I'm going to call the meeting to order, and we're going to jump in. My goal is based on our extremely long full board meeting to have one of our most efficient steering meetings so we can all enjoy an evening. So we're going to go at, we're going to get everything done, but I am going to keep things moving. And I'm going to jump in quickly. Our agenda is fairly simple. I had a chair report. We have a report for our new district manager. We'll just go through each one of our committees as we've done in the past, and then any new business. And that should keep us pretty efficient. I'm going to start quickly, and I have three things I did want to just touch base on in terms of the chair report. The first item is something that's already been discussed and sort of acknowledged, but as you know, we started with our new district manager, Michelle Booker. I am assuming, well, let me just make sure that we don't have people in as attendees. I can see Ken's there and Doug, but I don't see Michelle. Michelle will be joining because I spoke to her just a few minutes ago or a little bit ago. So I'm just trying to make sure she's not having any tech problems. And I'm just going to let people in.
Stephen, I can't find my name on the chat to say I'm here, so I'm here.
No, you're number 3.
Stephen, I see myself on the attendee list.
Hold on one sec, everybody. What was that?
You got it. Sorry.
Christian,
You're
I'm just
listed,
going to make you
Linda.
co-host just to help me along the way, okay?
Sure thing. Go ahead. Yeah.
And I'll make Mark co-host too. Not that we have a complex meeting, but we'll make the two of you co-host. Okay. So three things. We're off and running with Michelle Booker. So we're happy with our district manager starting and just acknowledging that we have four, if everyone can mute themselves. We've got 4 new members. The process for the new members is I've had conversations with 2 of them. I'm looking to have conversations with the other 2. And I think what we're going to do is allow them to sort of see as many committees during June and July, make the assignments in August, which will mean sort of September, they'll be fully functional. I'm hearing a little bit of reverb. I don't know if anybody else. Christian, could you maybe look through and just mute people that you think it may be coming from so I can continue on? So that's number 1. Number 2 is in order for Michelle to have a great transition, there is no formal process. There actually is no formal process down at Manhattan board president as well. The office doesn't have a formal process, which I learned. And unfortunately now we have 2, our district manager had already left. Our assistant district manager, if people don't know, has left. John, well, hopefully you saw my emails, but it was surprising that I found out last week that John's last day was Friday. So we're down to 2. Being down 2, we still have Jesse, but we put together what we call a transition task force to help, whether it be training, whether it be transition, whatever we want to say. And that task force is being led by Bev Donahue, who did a lot of the hard work in terms of helping us get along our district manager. And it's a small group of people. It is going to be, or it is, I should say, our 2 past chairs, which is Mark Dillo and Roberta. And we've invited Arena Stennett, Will Ortiz, and Paige Crowley also to be on that. So we have been meeting. We just started. We're going to be meeting weekly. That process has started. And I think, again, I think that's gone very, very well. And I think it's hopefully it will help get caught up in a lot of loose ends that we're sort of trying to get caught up on. And then the last thing I'd say is that we're going to plan or hope to have an event, and that is every year we did sort of the potluck picks for the new members. I sort of did a informal polling of different people, and I think the feeling is that we'd like to try and do an in-person event for people that are comfortable. We're looking at a couple of different dates, whether it's the end of June or somewhat in July. It'll be at a park. It'll be at Riverside Park or Central Park. It'll be outside. It's optional for people that feel comfortable. If you're not comfortable, we understand. I don't know if 70% of us are fully vaccinated or higher, but I know that I am, so I'm comfortable. And but we like to do an event, and I'm looking forward to it. I've started to see some new members. A couple of us went into the office. I was on an event on Sunday and saw some members, and it was just a really nice feeling. So I think that hopefully you guys can share your thoughts, but I think that's the plan. So I can ask any questions for my report, and then we'll continue on. But I will take a quick look if anybody has any questions. And Corey, you have your hand up.
Right. Stephen, do we have any target, any idea when we're meeting in person again?
So the answer is that that process has started. I was going to have Michelle speak to that, and if she doesn't join soon or isn't on, then I'll give some direction, but I don't want to steal her thunder. And she has been she's been going to meetings about this. The short answer is that process has started, but it's not defined yet. And if she doesn't join and give you an update, I will make a note to speak a little bit more about that.
Is that our
Excuse
decision,
me,
or
I
is it
didn't
a
hear.
borough-wide decision or citywide decision, do you know?
Blanche, hold off. I see that you have your hand up. There is no borough-wide decision. There is guidance, but it's up to every community board to move forward as they feel comfortable.
Thanks.
My question was, I didn't hear Carrie's question.
She asked if there was any guidance on when we're going to be open, when we're going to
Got it.
actually
Okay.
start to open the office.
Okay, fine, thank you.
Well, no, it was actually meeting in person, which is a little different.
Okay, well, the meeting in person, it's the same answer. Okay, Jay.
Stephen, is it the same process for replacing John that it was for hiring a district manager?
Well, the answer is that we are going to create a new process, but the answer is going to be different. We're going to create a working group. It's not going to be the executive committee, and we're just starting that process. It'll be led by our district manager because this is her hire, but it's going to be a collaborative process. And Michelle's on the line now that I see. And that's something that's going to be discussed tomorrow, but it's not going to be, it'll be similar, but not the same. And it's not going to be led by the executive team. There'll be other people involved in that process.
Does that also require approval by the full board?
I'm assuming so, but I haven't dotted the I's there, Jay, but I'm assuming if we had to, my instincts are yes, but I'll follow up with more definitive. Okay. A couple hands were up and they went down. Maybe that was the question. I'll give it a few more minutes or a few more seconds if anybody has a question. And I will move on. Just keeping to look here. Okay. Well, Michelle, it's your report time. So the agenda, I think you might have came in a little bit tardy, but the agenda was the chair report, the district manager report. We then go through the committees and then we do new business. So I will hand it to you and I will give you a heads up. Someone did ask about the question about when we may do meetings live, and you may want to assess that or give the direction that you've been giving. But without further ado, Michelle Booker to give her first district manager report for CB7.
You have to unmute Michelle.
I caught it. Thank you. Thank you so much, Christian. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Just trying to get my Zoom to not light me out. Apologies for the delay. I was actually on the call with April, who is our Manhattan Borough President Liaison, to flush out some questions for her. So as of now, so I know there's been some concerns about full reopening. Right now, there has not been direct guidance from the Borough President's Office. There is still prudence being involved, but it will likely happen in the fall on a continuous basis. As of now, Jesse and myself have been in, and we are, going in to check the mail to see what's happening, getting feedback from constituents, and just checking on everything. So thank you for that concern. Just want to flag a few global constituent concerns. The first one is on West 82nd Street on West End Avenue, there was scaffolding up at a building. It was removed and it's being put back up. So we're going to follow up with that and see what's going on. If it's an issue that there's more repairs or something being done to that building. The second major one is there is a senior living facility being built on 85th and Broadway. And there has been some feedback that upon that construction beginning, there has been really significant rat infestation. Owners of buildings have been removing planters, trying to make sure that their, the entries of their homes, whatever gardens they have, don't attract them. But apparently there are families and a whole bunch of stuff going on. I did reach out to the Rat Academy, and I have to encourage, if people are reaching out to you and sharing that they're experiencing this problem, the most important thing to track the issue is to have them call 311 and get a complaint number or a ticket number. That way the city can, when we call and say this is what's happening, the city can then track and see that, wow, we've had 100 311 calls. We've had 200 311 calls. And that provides a lot of push as well as evidence that this complaint is really important and needs to be addressed. The city can come out and do a rat infestation. They can go in and mitigate. But to my knowledge, that hasn't happened, and people claim the developers haven't put out traps. So I do think this is an important issue for the Land Use Committee. Third, there is some construction going on around Chirping Chicken. That's on 932 Columbus Avenue. The person called in and said they believe it's an illegal construction. So I have to also follow up with that, but we are working on those issues as of now. While I was on the call with April, I am planning to have a district service cabinet meeting later this month. It will just be a hello, how is everyone, and get some information. And if there's any critical issues that need to be addressed or that agencies or the police are addressing. So I will be following up with that, planning that, and let everyone know when that takes place. As the other thing that's most important, that's on my priority list, is that we really do need to I'll be working with Stephen and a group of people to, of course, you've heard him say, hire an ADM. And we also, I've been reached out to by the fund for the city of New York that has a graduate students in urban planning studies to be fellows for the year. And I will be going through that process. I spoke to Aldrin Benella today. Our community board will get a little extra time to flag and put together an application. But that is something that is driven by the DM, but I am open to suggestions as to what we are thinking about. But I have some issues that I think would be interesting to work with. Okay, thank you. That's my report.
Great. So we can have a couple questions. Louisa, I see that your hand is up. Louisa, you got to unmute yourself. Louisa, we can't hear you.
Steve, could I just ask a very basic, quick question of Michelle? And Michelle, what is your email address? This is Blanche Lawton, and if I send out emails to my co-chair or to Steve, I certainly want to include you in the loop. And I don't have.
I will print that in the chat box, and you're welcome to. I think that's easier for everyone. So I'll put it in the chat. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay. The building that you were talking about where the work is being done is the Mickey Mantle School. It's on the northeast corner of 82nd and West.
Louisa, you muted yourself again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry about
Louisa,
that.
can I make a suggestion? Turn off your video, because that'll help you speak more, and because I think you're having some tech problems.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. So it's the Mickey Mantle School. They've been doing renovations. They did not want to move the children out. And so they did the facade work before the pandemic, a little bit into the start of the pandemic. It was very, very noisy. Apparently what has happened is the terracotta tiles, I live across the street. The terracotta tiles on the roof had started falling off. And so they're doing this emergency shed on the building. And we have just been notified that work will start immediately on the roof as an emergency measure. And then they are putting out a RFP for bids to fix the roof. They said this will be probably going into 2023, and they have advised us that it will be noisy. So God knows how noisy it will be. But that is what's going on there. The building, people from the building around met with the contractor and the people from DOE who was supervising. This was before it started. Stephen was there also because you remember those meetings. And they agreed to stop work by 10 o'clock at night. And apparently the reports that I'm getting from neighbors are that they're working at the moment until midnight. So that is my update on that.
So is this for 82nd and West End?
Yes.
Okay,
It's the
so,
Mickey Mantle School, and it's a school for children with disabilities. So they did not want to move the children out while they were doing the work.
okay.
Thank you. Linda?
Regarding West 85th Street, I've spoken to a couple of the landlords on West, or the representatives on West 85th Street regarding and the first thing I said was, the thing I suggested was to call 311. One of those reps said that she was reluctant to do so because she was afraid that DOB would find them and she was concerned about that. The other one basically indicated the same, because sometimes when you call 311, you say I have a rat problem. DOB responds by giving you, or DOT, by giving the owners the tickets.
So I did speak to Ms. Higgins. She did share that with me. I spoke to her yesterday. Just to conserve time, what I would recommend that this is revisited in land use, and there needs to be a call to action with the developer and the city. And, you know, because they just can't be 311 calls. You can't walk outside and have rats coming out from tree holes. Like, that's just a bit too much. And so we have to figure out who to reach out to so that this can be mitigated, and that the rat traps and whatever other measures can be done, that this is implemented as soon as possible. So Linda, I welcome following up with you later.
I was just going to say, anything that I can do, I'll be happy, and I'll follow up with you tomorrow.
Okay.
And see, you know, how I can help participate.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Linda. Richard?
Yeah, just on the rats. We have in the past been in contact with the owners, the developers, and they profess an interest to be good neighbors. So I would probably, you know, we'll take it up in land use, and probably what we will do is to first contact the owners and see if there's a mitigation measure that they can apply. And, you know, but still encouraging people to call 311. The other thing about scaffolding is that scaffolding has become an epidemic, you know, and we've heard complaints over the years from many tenants and buildings that scaffolding stays up. I heard yesterday's somebody was in a building that scaffolding's been up for 15 years. And so I think that's another thing that we want to look at and see if there's some kind of generic solution.
Do you have a list of, is there a tenant association on that block at 85th Street? Do you have a tenant association there?
There is not a tenant association there. It's a commercial. it's zoned for commercial and residential because it's the block between Broadway and Amsterdam. We also have three restaurants on Dynasty, Aaliyah, and French Roast. So that, of course, is going to exacerbate the problem. But no, Heinz has not been, they've been a little disingenuous across the board. And I've worked with them before. I mean, it's unusual. So I don't know who to contact. Whatever I can do, Richard, let me know. We'll have a little meeting.
Let's keep moving, but we'll take
Linda,
this offline.
we'll,
I would definitely take this offline, but I think there's, to Richard's point, Richard knows we had a meeting. I think they'll listen to us. Their offices are right here in 85th. And I think we got the right thing. Richard, I would just, I could not agree enough that I think taking up an issue similar to scaffolding like we did netting would be something I would be 100% supportive of myself. Christian.
Yes, Michelle, can you let us know going forward how much functioning the office will be doing in the immediate future? Like if we have constituent calls go to voicemail, how soon are those calls going to be returned?
I can't hear you. You are muffled.
Sorry, let me try again. Okay, can you tell us what sort of functioning we can expect from the office going forward? For instance, if a constituent calls and leaves a message, how soon before they get a call back?
I reach out to them right away.
By the way, so okay, wonderful.
Right, Jesse?
So maybe take a minute.
Jesse,
I think we talked about, why don't you talk about the level of importance you have on constituency, maybe just talk about the process. But I can tell you one thing, that one of the things that when we spoke to Michelle, this was one of the most important things that we discussed. And you can give 30 seconds, Michelle, on your thought process and what that is, because I think that could be questions from other people.
Sure. So what I'm working out with Jesse is that she, and even John did the same thing. So whether people reached out by the mail at cb.nyc.gov or they called in, they reached out and they flagged me about the issue. We either called the person back or we've emailed them back. So in the short time that I've been here, I have seen responsiveness regarding, and we do have a way of checking the voicemail. So, and Jesse's been helping with that. So thank you for your feedback.
Thank you, Michelle. Clary.
So two things. With regard to the scaffolding, I wasn't going to talk about that, but that has certainly been a citywide issue, that the length of time scaffolds are there, et cetera. It's not by any means unique to us. And I know, just a suggestion, maybe you're there already, Richard, that I know that there's been legislation proposed in the city council. I don't know what has passed and what's still proposed and what's had hearings, but I think Helen Rosenthal's office should be a good resource on that if you're not there already. But I wanted to ask Michelle. Michelle, at the beginning of when you spoke today, you mentioned you were setting up a district service cabinet meeting, which is fabulous. I don't know to what extent that process had fallen by the wayside in recent months or more than a year. It would be helpful if there's a way you could let us know when that is scheduled. I think you said you hadn't scheduled it yet. I know that, I become aware of things all the time that are essentially interagency issues that are not matters of policy, but something's going wrong. And for us to be able to know when you have a district service cabinet meeting coming up, so that if we have something we want to bring to your attention, to have you bring to the attention of that group, that would be fabulous if there's a way you can have that timing work for us.
Yes, I would, although for the first one, I really like the opportunity to engage them on my own.
Sure.
To just really be able to hear. I don't want it overrun like that. I don't mean to frame it that way, but I'd really like the opportunity for them to engage me regarding it. I will put it on the calendar I want to be able to kind of navigate that meeting, hear from everyone and hear their perspectives on what's happening. So I'd like to use that space for that for this June. If there is anything pertinent coming out of your committees that you'd like me to bring to their attention, you're welcome to call me or email me so I can do so. Okay?
That's helpful, Michelle. It's not even necessarily coming out of my committee or any other committee. It's more like daily life in New York. But thanks, that's very helpful.
Okay.
Clary, this will be, it's usually, but it will be a standing meeting. So I know it used to be the last week of every month. Michelle will have the flexibility to put the day what it is, but once it is, it'll be a standing meeting. And the idea is to create an opportunity for you to communicate your concerns before that meeting, and we'll make sure we facilitate that.
That's great, thanks.
Sure. Roberta, when you have the digital and the physical, I cannot not call you. So go ahead.
Just to clarify on the sidewalk sheds. So the sidewalk sheds are a big problem. Ben Kalos had a working group. When I was chair, Andrew Ridgie was part of that working group. And Andrew can really tell us the most about it. The legislation did not pass the last couple of years, but there is legislation that was that's still ongoing. And Andrew, probably Michelle can give you and also land use the biggest update, because he's much more in the loop on that.
Thank you, Roberta. Jay.
Yeah, I actually was going to say something similar to what Roberta said, that for several years, I would bug Helen about pending legislation. Just Richard, there, as Roberta said, there has been a bill pending in the city council for years, literally for years. And not only has it not passed, it's never gotten on an agenda in committee, and it's never been considered. So you might want to take a look at it prior to any meeting, so you have some context as to what the proposed solutions might be.
I'll try to get a hold of Andrew. Andrew, I'll get a hold of you offline tomorrow if that's okay.
And I'll reach out to Ben.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And anyway, my last comment is what it's going to take from our perspective is putting pressure on whoever takes office in the city council after the next election. It's going to take relentless pressure because the bill has never moved.
Great. And for our last member, we'll have Andrew Ridgie from the top of World Trade Center 1, or whatever we're calling it these days. I don't know how high up in the air you are, Andrew, but
I was like, no, I'm down now. I'm sorry, I was in an elevator. I heard my name and got cut out. But yeah, we can connect separately on the scaffolding issue. There were some technical concerns with the bill, and we don't have to get into it right now, but happy to circle back on it. And obviously that's a big issue for many different reasons, and not just in our community, but really throughout the city. So happy to discuss further.
great. Well, and again, we've started a conversation, but seemed there's a lot of interest. Peter, I see your hand up in the audience. What I'd ask you to do is, can we wait till new business? I want to get in with the rest of us. I give you my word, I'll give you an opportunity, but I'm hoping to get into the rest of it. And I'll let you speak. Maybe you'll have more than one question, but I'm going to call on you later, Peter. So if we can move on, thank you, Michelle, for your report, and we're going to move into the committee reports. I thought to change it up because I always feel like certain ones go last and other ones go first. So I'm going to start with the task force and go in reverse order because I'm feeling a little crazy today. So the senior task force, let's start with your report or anything you want to share and anything relevant for the board that we want to discuss for board. So Roberta.
The senior task force did a wonderful program in May on vision and hearing. It was up on the website. Unfortunately, Zoom took it down. The Center for Hearing and Communication is creating a new Zoom, a new, I guess, YouTube that will have the captioning so that it actually captions the correct words. So hearing impaired will match what's actually happening on the screen. And once we have that, I will send it to whoever's doing our CB7 web, and we can put it back up on our CB7 website. If you have not seen it, it's fabulous. The senior task force is looking at doing an event, possibly on Zoom at the end of August on an area of concern to people, which is arthritis.
Thank you. And you brought something up. I would ask everyone to be a little patient with the website. It was we're having sort of a slow transition, and John had led that, and we got a little bit of void. Our one and only Christian has offered to step up and be helpful in that. So we're super happy. But please it may be a little bit slower. It may take time. It's going to happen. There's going to be a process. A lot of people give me notes on the website, and that's fine. I'm just acknowledge that it's going to be a little bit of a transition, and be a little patient. So with that, let's go to Susan in the Bylaws Task Force.
Thank you, Stephen. We're meeting once a week now, so we can get this finished in our own lifetime. Last week, we were talking a lot about decorum at meetings and how we can move meetings along and how we can encourage better behavior. I'm hopeful that we'll have enough of a revision to the current bylaws, enough of a chunk of it that we can bring it to the full board or to steering, however Stephen feels is best, for review sometime in the next month or two. Our hope is to do this chunk by chunk rather than one big, gigantic, huge, undigestible thing to look at. But the group is working well together. We're having not a good time, but we're working well together. Everyone's working very hard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we're to the Budget Task Force. And I don't know if Roberta's going to speak as well. There's Bev and Mark as well on the phone.
We had a good meeting last week. We met with Michelle, and we met with Cindy, Chief of Staff of Helen Rosenthal's office, and we're joined by Helen. Our particular concern last week was that the city budget has taken away $12,000 from the funds that the community boards get, and the budget will be voted on the end of this month. So Helen gave us some good advice. We are in the process of, and Mark wrote a really good cover letter. So we're now reaching out to city council members that were suggested to us by Helen, to our own city council members. Michelle is reaching out to the other district managers and to some of the ones in the other counties. So that's where we're at. That we think the $12,000 restoration is very important, especially since we are now dealing with some very serious issues. We've also asked every single committee to look at their DNS in June and to complete their DNS in early, at their first meeting in July, and to vote on any budget requests they have. And if anybody has questions, feel free to reach out to me after this meeting.
Yeah, you can put them in the chat as well.
Oh, Stephen, I just want to quickly share that I did reach out to the other district managers in the borough of Manhattan, and that there was a hearing and that several of them did testify. So there is some advocacy momentum in this area. Thank you.
Great. In summary, there is some law. There is what was 12,000 that we've lost in terms of our budget, and we are actively working either to both advocate at the political level and/or at the local level to get it back. And that's the plan that was just described to you. That we're all working very hard to get that back into our budget. Bev, I forgot to, I don't know if you were expecting to speak, but if you want to give any little update in how the transition task force has come together, or any facts or anything you wanted to offer?
We're working to support Michelle, and in a number of different ways. We are meeting every Thursday. Some of us are able to go directly to the office and meet with her there. And a variety of things concerning how to get all of our money spent down by the end of June before it disappears at the end of the fiscal year, where we can buy some technical equipment that we need, to looking at a way to sort through and triage a year's worth of mail that's largely sitting there unsorted, to thinking about how to reopen the office, and a variety of other issues that Michelle brings as she's working her way up the learning curve. So Michelle, do you have anything to add about the group?
It's really been really helpful and informative. and providing with a lot of support. We've been getting some of our mail. We've gotten the rent paid. We're getting stuff done one day at a time. Thank you.
I will say that it was unusual to be in the office, so I kept pulling down the screen just to make sure it still worked. It was kind of fun and interesting. So it was an interesting day. Okay, let's go on to our committees. We're going to stay with the reverse. Shelley, you always got to go last, and today you get to go first. So
thank you. Okay. So we haven't had our meeting. We're having it on the 29th, but two follow-ups from last month's meeting. One was we had a representative from Search and Care. That's an organization that helps homebound elderly with a lot of services, including computer technology services on site at home. And they're coming to the West Side. So we've connected them with a number of senior agencies so that they don't overlap and so they complement each other in a nice way. And so far that's gone well. The second thing, this was at the full board meeting, we had a question from the 107th Street Block Association. Nancy Cohn spoke up, and one of the key issues was about 235 West 107th Street. It's a building next to the shelter that we rallied for, which was a women's shelter, became a men's shelter. This is the next door. It's been kind of a flop house for many years, and questionable legal situations in terms of people coming in as tourists when tourist hotels are not acceptable anymore. In any case, because of COVID, nothing happened for a year. And then all of a sudden, within the last 2 weeks, HPD purchased the building, and Goddard Riverside will be initiating a program there. I connected Goddard Riverside with the Block Association, with Father Kearney from Ascension Church and another tenants group, and suggested that they meet before they come to the board at our meeting to explain what it is, so that the people who are most affected get the information up front and directly. I think their program is an excellent one. It's permanent housing. They will explain more details as we go on. So we've been able to uncover that secret, okay, which wasn't really a secret. It just wasn't, nothing happened. And then all of a sudden, in a timely way, when we were looking for it, something did happen. So that's the report.
thanks. One question that we do ask that Michelle knows, and Michelle has a background, we are talking to half the groups, or around half, will have met and the other half hasn't. We kind of reverse it. So the group that we're talking to now haven't met, but we're talking in the future. So Shelley, are you anticipating a resolution out of this month?
We're not anticipating a resolution because we do not want to opine on the program until it's fully worked out. And one of the topics is anti-racist, and we're exploring it and involving other community boards to discuss what they have done and what actions they've taken before we move ahead. Because there was a meeting with Helen Rosenthal's staff, and it seemed that it went in many, many different directions, and no one quite knew what we should focus on. So rather than try to come up with something and make it happen, we're inviting the Human Rights Commission to speak, and if they'll come, a couple of community boards that have taken action.
And don't feel guilty, like it's an implied question. I'm just factually making a resolution.
And then you don't have to worry about getting in it at the last minute. So on the agenda.
Okay. And I would, if you don't know, Michelle was the chair of her own HHS. So perhaps the two of you can coordinate. She can bring in some people as well. I think it'd be a great collaboration.
Super.
I'm going to move. There is a hand up. Ken, do you have a question?
Vice Chair, Vice Chair.
Vice Chair, sorry.
Yes.
We're all co-chairs at this level. It's a different
Okay.
semantics, but
Thank you.
I will now know the correct term.
Shelley, is this the Morningside Inn that you're talking about?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay, it's on the other side. Okay.
It's on the, immediately to the east of the women's shelter and almost immediately to the west of Ascension Church,
Okay, it sounds like the
on
Morningside
the
Inn.
north side of the street,
235?
235 west of
That's
107.
the Morningside Inn.
Well, it's no longer anything.
Oh, okay. All right. I
Okay,
heard,
but you may be right. You're probably right.
I know a resident, so I'm interested.
Okay.
Thank you. Louisa, did you
Okay.
have a question?
Yes. Shelley, do you know what the population will be? You said this is permanent housing?
It's permanent housing. I could give you all the details, but I'd be taking the thunder away from and information away from Goddard Riverside presenting it on the 29th. So privately, I'll be glad to share it, but I think if we do it so publicly, there'll be more questions than.
Okay, fine. I'll contact you
Be
and I'll
gla-
be
be
there on the
glad to.
29th.
Be glad to.
Should
Thank
that
you.
be
Thank you.
joint with housing if it's permanent housing?
It's going to be permanent housing. This came up as a shelter issue at the full board, and it ended up that it's not going to be a shelter. Although some people think anything that is low income or has any special supportive services must be a shelter. And I think we have to educate the community better. So I think people will be very happy with what they're doing. I'd be glad to share it with housing, and come the 29th. They're only going to give a small presentation, a few minutes, because again, they want to dispel the rumors, and we've heard all kinds of rumors about that place, some that are inane, but to straighten that out. But further than that, they have to work with the local people.
Okay. If I could make it just a suggestion, I think Melissa's question, should it be a dual meeting? And perhaps it would. It sounds like it's an intro and there could be more follow-ups, Melissa.
Okay,
And
that's
perhaps
fine.
if you would
Sure.
invite the committee, your committee, to say, hey, this is something we may want to go to. And then if it makes sense as a follow-up to do a dual committee, we can work on that together.
By the way, the information just came to me yesterday, late afternoon, when I met with Goddard Riverside. So this is kind of fresh off the press.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to YEL. Blanche, are you giving the update this time? Because I know the topic, and I know you're passionate about it. Yeah.
Of course. I'll give a part, and certainly Courtney will give the other part. First of all, we changed our meeting date this month from Thursday of this week, which would have been the 17th, to the following Thursday, the 24th. And I think everybody who has to know has been informed of that. We determined that this would be an ideal update on our libraries. Apart from my personal thing about libraries, it's an appropriate time with schools going out on break and things just opening up. Libraries have been an important refuge in general, and certainly much needed after everybody has been in isolation. We've confirmed with the manager of government and community affairs from MPL Central. He will be with us to give us a general sense of what libraries do in our various communities. And as I've come to realize, it's not just books, but we're also waiting to hear and expect to hear from the director of all the libraries on the west side, and have a sort of what have we been able to do through libraries throughout the pandemic affliction, I should say, not system. So that's next week, Thursday. anybody who's interested is certainly more than welcome to tune in. We're also working on, like everyone else, our district needs statement and budget. And Courtney, I think, can bring us up to date on, in part, on where we are with that. We've reached out to certain stakeholders, so we will be including their comments or reactions or aspirations, and above all, how can CB7 help them move their objectives along. So, Courtney, you want to pick up?
Sure, and I also just see Roberta has her hand up. So,
Courtney, please, Courtney, why don't you finish your section if there's anything?
Sure. No, I only had small things to add. Mostly, I also think I personally am really interested in the library conversation because to hear what's happening in terms of the reopening process for the summer. As Blanche said, important resource over the summer. And then, yes, we're just continuing our DNS conversations, as I'm sure everyone else is, and trying to hit the timeline that has been laid out for us. So. That's all.
And just quick question, are you guys anticipating a resolution?
Steve, uncharacteristic of me, because I'm not a resolution fan, as you know.
I know.
But I was thinking that we may very well get a resolution, because part of the problem with the Bloomingdale Library on 100th Street, which some of us may be familiar with, pretty much the entire footprint of that library has been unused. I wouldn't even say misused, I'd say unused for a number of years. And we see that as being prime real estate, as it were, for community use. We have made gentle and genteel approaches, we meaning the library staff and CB7 over the years. And we think it may be time to make a more forceful approach if a resolution could do that. And we also have in mind that we're coming up on elections, both local, meaning city council, borough president, and of course, mayoral. We may get a more positive response to the use of that enormous space that is really totally wasted and has been for about 5 years. Mark, I don't know if you want to make any comment on that, because I know you have been very concerned and involved in the use of that space.
And I don't want to interrupt. I'm just saying let's discuss that at YEL. I'm just trying to take logistical notes for resolutions. And so Mark, I'm sure, has opinions. He needs to share them, and we'll do that at YEL. But I'm not judging anything. I'm literally just writing down, because we make our, I don't know how many people know, but we make our first round of agendas for full board out of here. So I'm just trying to anticipate things. So thank you. I do see Roberta has her hand up.
Thank you. The confusion is that the CB7 website lists YEL as being on the 24th, which is great. The Zoom link lists it as being on the 17th, and it was tweeted today that it's on the 17th. So we need to make a few little corrections.
Yep, there were some emails by Courtney, and he's working with Julian. Thank you for pointing that out, and we'll take care of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to Parks and Environment, and that will either be Barbara or Clary, or both.
I could say, okay. I could start and Barbara can add, if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so
Clary, could you move closer to the mic? It's hard to hear you.
Yeah, I actually turned up my computer's microphone because I understood it was hard to hear me. Are you hearing me? I hope so. I don't know what
You
else.
lean in, it helps out. So
I'm
it's
doing
a little
that.
better when you lean in.
I am inches from my screen and I took up the volume and well, never mind.
I can hear you wide and clear, and we love your glasses.
Okay,
So
thank
go
you.
get them.
We didn't have a May meeting, and as a result, a lot of things have piled up, and we are going to have a lot of items on our June 21st meeting coming up next Monday, and then the next in July. Some of them of quite general interest, but holding off now on telling you about July and just talking about June. Stephen, I think we're going to have 3 resolutions likely. There's going to be a playground and a Saul Bloom playground, partial renovation there, and also a small thing in Central Park. But our big item is going to be, and our first item on our agenda after our meet and greet, is going to be a presentation by the EDC on behalf of the Parks Department of their plans to almost completely remove and replace, vastly expand the 79th Street boat basin. We'd had a preliminary presentation in December of 2019, didn't hear another thing, and suddenly they're back because they have to go to the PDC. So it's going to be a big deal. I've circulated we've received their slides. I've circulated them to members of the committee. If other members of the board are planning to attend our meeting, we can, if you let me know that you'd like to see the slides in advance, I can send them to you as well. And that's basically where we are.
Okay, yeah, I'll just add that we also have a presentation on lawn bowling in Central Park. And I think that we can expect probably 3 resolutions coming out of Monday's meeting.
Yeah, as I said, I think we're not going to have one on the lawn bowling, although we might, but we do have in the other.
No, I don't think so. But the New York Roadrunners Club is asking to put a medallion at the finish line of the marathon because it's the 50th year for that. And I don't expect that will take much time, but I think they will be looking for a resolution as well.
And one on Saul Bloom as well.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Roberta, did you have a question, or was it the hand was still up? Okay. One thing to mention that you had said, just a reminder, as you move forward for your meetings, can you please, I told you that we got to be patient around the website. We got to be patient around Zoom. Can you please, if you want to become a panelist, if you want to add a speaker, please, you need to send it to Michelle. You should CC Christian, you should CC Mark, and you should CC myself as well. We're all going to support her. But if you don't do so, then you take the chance of it kind of not going through. So I hope everyone hears. Please make sure that the 4 of us in between that will do so. And again, if you don't, please feel free. If you don't see it, if you're concerned, feel free to remind us. But you have to send it to all 4 of us. We're all working together.
Hi, Steve. To that note, I just added staff from DCP on the upcoming meeting. I think it was for land use. Okay, I just added them. You're welcome.
So I had a quick, I had a request. I don't know. I was going to go to housing. Do I see? Okay. I'm going to stay with the order because I got a note about someone jumping off, but I think she might have jumped off. So let's go to land use.
We have 2 ULURP items. One is to eliminate the requirement of a special permit every time somebody wants to build a gym. It is an anachronistic rule, and I don't think we've ever rejected the gym. And city planning is proposing to eliminate the requirements so that it will encourage particularly small gyms, pop-up gyms, who otherwise couldn't have afforded to start a gym to open up in the communities. The second item is the reverse, the proposing to add a special permit requirement for hotels in certain districts. I believe that there's nothing in Community Board 7 that's affected by it, but I'm not sure. And we've already had a spirited discussion about whether this is good or bad for the hotel industry and surrounding communities. But we're going to be voting on it tomorrow night. We're also going to be discussing our district needs, our portion of the district needs statement, which traditionally has been 0, but we may want to include something about funding for planning. In the future, there are 2 items that we're not going to talk about probably tomorrow night, but that people should bear in mind. The first is a proposal to rezone the block between 110th and 109th on Broadway, along with numerous blocks in Ward 9. It would be an upzoning, and the trade-off would be mandatory inclusionary housing. And it promises to be an interesting and controversial subject. We also expect to hear in the future from the developer of the site that was the Salvation Army site between Broadway and West End on 96th Street. They're meeting tomorrow with the Transportation Department to try to figure out logistically how to handle a construction site that abuts a bus stop and an area where there are usually 3 or more buses just waiting there. And most important, the first half hour at 6 o'clock will be devoted to a meet and greet with Michelle.
I know Michelle is an eager land use person, so she's excited.
Cool.
Thank you, Richard. If I could just add, so as Richard mentioned, we did get we heard the Morningside Heights rezoning proposal for the first time at our meeting last month, and we did get some responses to questions raised with that, and so we distributed that to members, but we don't anticipate discussing that. We are going to discuss our district needs. We were going to discuss 270 West 96th Street, the building going up with the micro units where the Salvation Army is. They were not ready. They anticipate coming next month, but they did notify us that DEC has approved their remedial action work plan, also known as RAWP, and they've now submitted that document for public comments. I don't know if Parks and Environment, if Environment looks at something like remediation, but that'll be out there. We also got a notice from City Planning just like in the last day or so that they are revising their rules for privately owned public spaces, POPs, related to COVID. Previously, there were emergency rules that allowed these to be closed. As of July 1st, 21, all of the POPs will be required to reopen and remain open for the approved hours of public access, but City Planning is still having allowing regulations that allow the owners of such to mark off certain seating so people can maintain their 6-foot distance and such. So we can circulate that to everybody. And then the other thing is even though we are hearing a proposal by City Planning to remove the health and fitness sort of extension, we have a New York Sports Club that's on 94th and 95th Street that has an application to the BSA to extend the term of a previously granted special permit that allowed the operation of it. So we actually might have 3 resolutions as well. The one for the sports club, the one for City Planning's citywide hotel text amendment, and the one for the health and fitness text amendment to remove the special permit. So looks like a busy full board meeting coming up.
Yeah. And can I make a request, particularly for the ones in the future? The one thing we'd like to do is get the agenda. So you may not have the resolution done, but maybe if you can make the titles, it helps us put a placeholder. So if you just think you know what you may name these resolutions, it would be helpful. We generally just lift them off the agenda, and sometimes you have to edit it. So I know that I think we talked about.
You're talking about the full board agenda?
Yeah, if you said this is going to be the name of the agenda of the resolution, even though you didn't write it, it helps me kind of work with Michelle to get
We
that.
could, since we're meeting tomorrow, we can do both.
Well, if you want time to write it, but I will say it actually is helpful for everyone, whether it be the 3 for parks or just to have the name of it, because otherwise we end up editing.
We can give you the name and we can give you the results, and the text will come later.
Perfect, thank you. Mark, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. Most of what I'm intrigued by, a lot of what has just been reported, but that's for the meeting tomorrow. But the one thing that may not be timely for the meeting tomorrow is that I understand that the Fetner folks from 270 West 96th will be coming to your July meeting, but I'm wondering what the comment period will be on the report about the remedial action work plan, because that it's conceivable to me that that'll expire before your meeting in July. Do we know what the timing is on that? Because there are neighbors who have already been in touch with me and probably with you, who are probably the same neighbors that came and testified when we had this in ULURP in December of 2019, who are, let's just say, really following this very closely. So I think it would be good to us to let them know when they can comment. So do we know what the timing is and what the deadline is?
We can check on that, but I think that it was very recent that it became approved at the city level, and normally we get a written communication saying you have until X day to respond. But I'll check. You know, we can check tomorrow, and maybe Michelle can figure it out. I'd be surprised if the time will expire before our July meeting.
Yeah, and just to give context, they've been very communicative. I think they're working well with. They've been reaching out to us to meet. So I'm sure that they'll be eager to have a conversation, and we'll find out the logistics about that timing. I did want to just make a mention and thank Richard for being a great parliamentarian and answering all my impromptu phone calls to him and throwing questions at him, because it's been a flavorful month of unusual parts. So if I'm in a committee meeting and something comes up, I got to call him up, and he answers my calls and helps him. So he's been a great parliamentarian. I want to thank him for all his help. And it's been everything we've done has gotten us there. So thank you. I do appreciate it that you're picking up the phone and always answering my calls.
As parliamentarian, I rule that you're out of order.
Well, that's
our
thank you
IP,
so much.
impromptu parliamentarian.
Thank you. Okay, so let's continue onward. Now we're going to be moving to meetings that occurred. So let's talk to housing. Luisa, I'm just going to recommend that you turn your video off, because I think it'll make your it'll make
okay, everybody.
Yeah, much.
Right. Okay, we met last night. The most important thing is the eviction moratorium, which is set to expire August 31st. So there probably will be a resolution, but we've just started doing the research on it, what the various options are, what the bills are, etc. We have a lot of work to do before the next meeting.
Great. All right, so I don't see any questions. Thank you, Luisa, for being so efficient. And we will move on to preservations. Michelle, I think you'll be speaking. Michelle? Michelle Parker? All right, why don't we skip Michelle for a minute, and we'll give her a quick text, and let's move on to BCI.
Okay.
Hi. I'm going to just start very quickly. We had 2 new applications for SLA for liquor licenses. They're very pro forma. They passed easily. There was another alteration in the liquor license. And then we had, so there was a wonderful portion of the meeting. And then we had an extraordinary meeting, and I will cede the table to Mr. Cordova. Senor Cordova.
Okay. So we had a further discussion on the resolution for have delivery bicyclists to be able to use the restaurant for the restaurants where they pick up food from to be delivered. We had somebody from the Los Deliveristas Unidos spoke to us. It was very informative, and they had a couple of the bicycle delivery people also spoke to us. It was very informative, and we passed a resolution supporting. Actually, there's a series of bills on the at the city council right now. One of which calls for the restaurants to allow the delivery people that pick up food at the restaurant to be allowed to use the restrooms, and if they don't, they could face fines. And they do have some exceptions to that rule as to that allow for the bathroom usage to be denied based on particular cases. We passed a resolution supporting that that bill with a caveat that the restaurants will be warned first before any fines would be assessed. As part of that discussion, also there were information about different issues with bicycles on the city. That so we were encouraged to have a joint committee meeting with transportation to explore the different issues having to do with the delivery personnel.
Which we are still discussing. We've discussed with Stephen, and we'll be discussing with Howard and Andrew. So that's in the and of course our committee for consensus.
So it's going to be one resolution, and then how many, and then the traditional,
right, and, right, yeah, just two new SLA applications and one alteration.
Okay.
We can probably take one vote on that.
Understood. Look, I just, first of all, I wanted just to make a comment and compliment the chairs in what I thought was a really good meeting. And I just wanted to acknowledge two things. One is, I thought there was a lot of misunderstanding about the process, and sometimes we have to be tolerant. So number one, a process was put together. That process was sort of a deliberate process that I believe led to the outcome. And I think sometimes we just have to trust that that things will work out and things will work out in time. And again, when someone puts together a process and you disagree, you're free to disagree, but at some point as chairs, you guys are allowed to work to do that. And I would hope that we would get on board and say, we agree this, but now it's made, so let's move forward, because that's going to happen. And I feel like some people, I've often heard processes being disagreed about, but we have to trust that as a community board, we will get the job done. And in this case, it was. And I felt that a lot of the comments was that it should have happened earlier, it should have happened then. Well, it happened when it happened and it got done. And, I will make a comment that I was a little disappointed at the articles that were written. And I think that there were some things that I think were not quite factually according to my notes. And I would encourage us as a community board to take a leap of faith with our leaders. And I did get some people who were concerned, and I think that perhaps we should support our community board leaders more than perhaps people writing, who I don't think always are quite factually speaking. But I'm very proud of the fact that we went through a process, came out. Could have happened faster, could have happened medium, but it happened when it happened. I think we got a lovely resolution. I'm very proud that it's going to be discussed, and I'm very optimistic it'll be voted upon. And I think that's the end game, is about the work. So, I think hopefully this is a learning moment for all of us to be tolerant about processes, tolerant of having faith in our own community board members. And I'm very happy at the end result here, and I'll be even happier come the beginning of July.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, Michelle, you back? I don't know if you heard us.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Not a problem, but let's go to preservations.
Thank you. I guess now I'm the other Michelle. Thank you. Preservation heard 5 applications this month, but only 3 are going to come before the board. 2 of them were tabled for more information and will be heard at our next committee meeting. The remaining 3, one was for, now I'm glad you're all sitting, the removal of the rear yard structure or the brownstone. They want to take the whole thing out. And 2, one was for a rooftop addition to a brownstone, which we voted against because it was of the bulk of the rooftop structure. And the other rooftop structure was on that big building on Central Park West between 93rd and 94th. They are building a pergola and they wanted to put a rooftop structure up there. We didn't really like how part of what preservation looks at is how visible is the structure to the rest of the universe. And in this case, or the street area, in this case, that structure was visible in large parts on Central Park, in Central Park. But we will have 3 applications instead of 5 this month, and probably load it up the next month because of the 2 that we tabled. I will tell you, if I could, at LPC today, they passed, they approved the construction at the Historical Society, and they are going to write, which they love the presentation. And I don't know if Paige is here. They love the presentation. They loved the structure. And I'm sure the Historical Society is happy about that. With respect to the Museum of Natural History, LPC gives a recommendation to the Public Design Commission, because we're talking about a piece of art that the Public Design Commission holds the final decision on whether the Teddy Roosevelt, in this case, the Teddy Roosevelt statue will be removed. And so there was no resolution per se on that issue. That's it.
Thank you. Richard, you have a question?
Just quickly, the pergola building,
Yeah.
what's the address of that on Central Park West?
It's 333 Central Park West, between 93 and 94.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Thank you. Clary?
Right. With regard, Michelle, with regard to the Museum of Natural History, although the LPC isn't the decider on that, did they take a position, a recommendation to the PDC?
They did not.
Will they?
Yes, no, they don't actually. You want to talk about this, Mark? Because you and I spoke about it.
If I can jump in, Michelle.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Jay.
I listened to the meeting this morning, and in fact, I testified. I was one of the dissenters on the committee resolution, and for those of you who care, I was very scrupulous in advising the commission that I was speaking only for myself, and not for the board or the committee. But what happened? It was an extremely interesting discussion, and specifically, Clary, in answer to your question, they did not make a recommendation because they could not get 6 commission members to agree on any position. The positions ranged from not wanting to remove the statue at all to completely removing it, to leaving the base or plinth with an explanatory plaque. And without taking a lot of time, I would characterize it as 11 commissioners with 11 different opinions on how this issue should be resolved. So what they are doing is sending a letter to the Public Design Commission summarizing the various positions of the commission members and not taking a position on any disposition of the issue.
That is so interesting. Thanks, Jay. Maybe maybe one of them will quote you. We'll see.
I hope not.
I think I've had enough quoting.
Enough lopping off parts of sculpture.
Thanks, Jay. And was this what you wanted to talk about with your hand, or was that another topic? I saw your hand up.
Me?
Yeah.
It was just, to expand on the LPC issue.
Well, and I want to thank you for your scrupulous disclaimer for the meeting as well. Well appreciated.
You're welcome, and very scrupulous.
Jeanette, you're up.
Land use has another issue I wanted to bring up, but I'll wait until Michelle's done.
Yeah, I'm done.
He's done?
Thank you. Uh-huh.
Okay, if you want to bring up the issue.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, because I totally forgot about this and we mentioned it a little bit, but in July, city planning is coming back to us to talk about the open restaurants, open restaurants, permitting, zoning stuff. And we thought that we should have a joint meeting, or we should figure out whether BCI should be there or how you want to do that. And, you know, we've been having really busy agendas lately. I don't know if we should have a separate meeting or if we should just invite those who can to come to the land use committee meeting or otherwise.
I think CPI should definitely be joint with us on this because there are economic issues that transcend land use issues.
The issue was transportation, BCI, and land use. I can tell you right now, put that all together, I don't think we'll get anything done. I'm going to say that.
No, just
there'll be too many opinions. I want to think about it. I discussed it with Stephen, and I have to discuss. Christian and I have to discuss it. How to make this the most effective and the most coordinated type of meeting. So.
Well, maybe the chairs can get together before the meeting and figure it out.
Is this something going to be discussed tomorrow?
No.
No. Okay.
We're not discussing it tomorrow, but city planning would like to know what, you know, should they just plan on coming to the land use scheduled meeting?
Got it. Yeah.
So let's acknowledge that we have to figure this out, and I'll kind of, we'll figure out a game plan and we'll work over in a short period of time, but how to approach this, we'll have a conversation, but I think it's good to bring it up. It's out there and we'll figure out. I think there's a lot of potential, but we also want to figure out what's the most effective and efficient for everyone. So duly noted that this is something
it's never been a problem that there are numerous opinions on an issue.
Okay,
somehow
we're gonna figure it out. I know one thing. There's a lot of opinions on the board, so we're used to that. So we'll figure it all out, and we've been able to balance them. So we'll figure out what's best. Duly noted that there could be a lot of options here, and we'll figure out what's best. We'll work with all of you.
Just wanted to bring it up for scheduling.
Not a problem. Michelle, did you have a question? The other Michelle?
Yes.
Wait, it's not the
The
other
new Michelle. I'm going to call it the new
Michelle.
Michelle. The new Michelle.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Thank you for your time. What I wanted to just flag for housing is the tenant declaration hardship form. Originally, the deadline for the form was May 1st. It has probably been extended. I will follow up and find that out by the end of the week if it has been extended, but it is a use for tenants who are dealing with rental arrears, who are concerned about eviction. If you complete this form, even if a sheriff comes to your door and you have completed this form, dated it, and passed it on to your landlord, you can show it and they cannot evict you. So that is the housing declaration form. There is also a form that was put together for homeowners as well, who may be facing a foreclosure. So I just wanted to flag that for the committees, okay?
Okay,
And
Michelle?
yes.
I'm sorry. I was just wondering, does that apply after the eviction moratorium ends on August 31st, though?
It will not apply after, it will apply before.
Right.
So however, if you show up in court and you have the form and you present it even in court, you may get some support. However, I will do a little more research on it to see if things have been modified, because in my prior hat, we were letting constituencies know about this declaration form. Initially, as I said again, it was advocated that people had it completed. There's no other addendums that are required for the form. The form itself is the declaration. I will find out. What we did learn from the legislatures was that even if the form, especially for many housing advocacy groups such as Palante, I'm not sure if you've heard of them, they had several meetings available for tenants, elected officials, advocates about this form to prevent evictions. But what I learned at that time was the form is there to protect tenants. Like I said, even if a sheriff shows up to your door, if you have the form, they cannot evict you. But the form does need to be submitted to your landlord.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Thank you for Louisa. Okay, last but not least, and a fan favorite, transportation.
The only resolution we have for the upcoming meeting is one on e-bikes. You might have read about it in the West Side Rag or Streets blog, and I'm sure it will engender a fair amount of discussion. The resolution was submitted by Jay Adolph, and it basically calls for a restriction that e-bikes no longer go into protected bicycle lanes, and also for greater enforcement against e-bikes. There was general consensus at the committee, and I enthusiastically joined that consensus, that there is an issue. The streets have changed, e-bikes are new, and we have to figure out how to deal with them. But there is a lot of but there's much less a consensus on what to do about them. And I'm sure you'll hear all about them at the full board meeting when we present this resolution, which passed our committee.
And the last part of that resolution was to ask for a study of additional information for e-bikes, such as licensing, helmet requirements, financial responsibility should an accident occur. There's a host of things. We have the text. We will be distributing the text shortly.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew, for adding that. It calls for the two things I mentioned immediately and for study. You know how that takes quite some time, but a study of those issues over time. Yeah. So you'll be hearing a lot more about that.
Thank you.
It was a spirited discussion, and I expect it will be so again.
Well, every transportation discussion is a spirited discussion, so we would expect nothing less. Yep. So, and we'll be prepared for full board. Christian,
this time I'm going to use a fake name.
Christian, I see that you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just have a comment that girls from Street Block the next day asked the mayor about that resolution on his press conference.
Yeah, we were happy to make it from our resolutions to prime time. So if there's any doubt, we're doing relevant work, whichever side of the aisle you're on. So
tragically, the actress who was hit at 64th in Amsterdam by an e-bike passed away. So it's on everybody's mind now.
Andrew, it was not an e-bike.
It was an e-scooter.
Let's raise your hand. An e-scooter, and we can talk. But
it was not even an e-scooter.
Ken, can you raise your hand? Ken, can you raise your hand? And I'd be happy to call on you. But we're going to raise your hand.
We're getting a preview of our
vital transportation is already taken over here. We're already prepping. Richard, did you have a question?
Just quickly, obviously there are differences from one e-bike to the other. There are e-bikes that provide an electronic assist for people, decrepit people like me.
Pedal assist, yes.
And then there are e-bikes where you don't have to pedal. The former is a form of bicycling, and that is particularly important to people who are getting on in years. Is there any distinction in your resolution between the two types?
Richard, we did discuss this, and when I prepared the resolution, I was very much aware of that distinction. And I just made the decision when I drafted the resolution, which I introduced, to not get into distinguishing between the various types of e-bikes. But at the committee meeting, I suggested that is a legitimate discussion. We didn't get around to voting on an amendment to either exclude that classification of e-bike or not.
Where would those bike riders bike? on the sidewalk or in the
And
traffic?
again, I don't think we're debating the reso right now. And I
Okay.
think it's a very valid point, Richard.
I
and
acknowledge,
we'll talk
Richard,
about
that-
it in full board because I'm sure
Right.
we're going to, and-
It's a reasonable topic of discussion.
And if you want to have a
Distinguishing
conversation with Jay, then I encourage you to reach out to him.
I always want to have a conversation with Jay.
And let me add, either Andrew or
So
I
you're
are
the
happy
one.
to discuss it.
Yeah.
Anybody wants it, but I
Yes.
think it's a valid point, Richard, and we'll have an
It
opportunity.
is a valid point, yes.
And I'm sure it'll come up. Ken, thank you
Yeah.
for raising your hand, and you're up.
Okay, I just wanted to correct Andrew on the absolutely tragic death of the actress. It was described in the media as a motor scooter, but it was a hit and run, so nobody got a good look at it. To me, that suggests something on the order of a revel, but we don't know for sure.
Thank you, Ken. Okay, that is it for all of our committee work. The last thing is new business. Peter, I do know I'm going to call on you, but any new business from any board members? And I see Clary's hands up.
Are you calling on me?
I am calling on you.
Okay, I am so close to my screen now that I could be smooching with you.
It's
except that
clear,
that's not-
crystal clear right now.
Okay,
It's incredible. It's well earned.
I don't think this is exactly new business, but whatever it is. I'm very grateful to Michelle Booker for joining us and to the Personnel Transition Task Force, whatever that group is called, for everything. And I'm sure they're overwhelmed. But I have a specific request, and that is if you could try to make a priority issuing to all of us an updated list of the contact information for all of our members, not just the 4 new ones, but never mind what happened in the past. There's some disagreement about that, but in any event, we really need that list if that could be a priority, please.
Relevant request, Michelle, we have a list that goes out. We generally send it out like every 6 months. To Clary's point, it hasn't been sent out in the last every 6 months. So perhaps it's something that actually Jesse coordinates. So perhaps tomorrow you can reach out to Jesse and say that we want to get out the new member list with all of the information. That would remove the 4 members that are off. It will put in the new 4, and then people have added their updated emails and addresses, so it'll be an update.
And of course, include Michelle Booker's info and take John's off and whatever.
Yes. And then again, just to finish up, it will include your information.
I have a question to that. So has every community board member agreed to having their information? All boards are different. Some of them do not want everybody to have all of their information. So all the members agreed that they want their emails and their phone numbers shared with the entire board.
To the best of my
I'll do
ability,
the request. I'm just asking.
I can only say that I know of no request ever to that anybody
Okay.
hasn't, and the fact that it's been sent out multiple times would say that. And from time to time, like someone has said, do this number, I don't want my cell phone, so people have that in control.
No, just for privacy. I'm just respecting people's privacy.
Even
Yeah.
we agree that it is not shared with anybody other than board members. So
It says that on the document.
all board members are requested to not, and it's on the document.
This is,
that it's
just to
fully
clarify,
shared.
this is an internal document. This is not an external
It's
document.
on the document that it's only shared amongst ourselves.
My suggestion is you could ask some more questions tomorrow in the meeting or Thursday, but I think it's pretty straightforward. And it's an internal document, and it does.
Thank you for clarifying. Lawyer's hat was on. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug, did you have a question? Your hand is up.
Yeah, I don't know if this is really new business. I've said it before, but being that we're on steering, I just think everybody should know that, and this is probably going to pertain mostly to BCI, but we're going to be tasked with reviewing marijuana dispensary licenses soon. I think the entire board should think about it, but probably more pertaining to BCI. We'll be reviewing applications, probably very similar to liquor license applications. The other thing is, which kind of piggybacks with our discussion earlier about the resolution was from city planning with regard to outdoor seating in cafes, enclosed cafes, outdoor cafes, street seats. It's going to be through the purview of the DOT. So it's something that we're going to think about when we're reviewing those applications. how we are going to run those through the committees, because obviously BCI is definitely part of it. Possibly transportation, because the DOT is now the licensee, no longer Department of Consumer Affairs, which is Department of Consumer Protection. And then as my public service announcement, which I said I was going to keep saying until the end, is that the Child Victims Act is expiring on August 13th. If anyone knows any people, personally, impersonally, family members, I do know people that are benefiting from this law. It's an incredibly important thing. That ends August 13th. That's the end of the window. So for those of you who know people that need to file suit or make their claim, I think it's an incredible opportunity. And with that, I will say thank you.
Thank you, Doug. And being a man of my word, Peter, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and welcome to Michelle. Looking forward to working with you. Couple of things. One was I wanted to just say that if there's anything that I can do with the 932 Columbus issue that you brought up at the very beginning, I'd be glad to help on that. I'm up in this neighborhood all the time, so that is, I'd be glad to help.
Peter, do you want to tell Michelle your title, just so she'll put a name with the, I would say
Sure.
face, you can't see it, but a name with the organization.
Sure, I'm with the Columbus Amsterdam Business Improvement District, north of 96th Street. And I put my cell number into the chat, and I can be reached easily on that, but also at info@columbusamsterdambid.org. And I can put that into the chat also.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so, also, in terms of reaching out to you, I have your old .gov address, email address, and I used Penny's office at CB7 to try and send you a message. I don't know if that will get through to you.
I will retype in my the email I'm using, and I will. Okay.
Great. I am not a panelist, so I won't be able to see it.
Okay.
That's part of the issue.
I will, Peter, I'll do I'll take a note and I'll just do a mash email.
I got it.
For the.
Great.
Okay, so
The other couple of things, one is that for 107th Street, a community advisory board used to exist for the community board had run, and it was tremendous for alleviating some of the problems up on 107th Street with the shelter. And I would love to see something like that reinstituted. I am so pleased to hear that the district service cabinet is coming back. That has been sorely missed by me. I do have a list of the people that used to be invited. If you cannot find that, it used to be sent out by John Martinez. And lastly, we have lots of open streets north of 96th Street. And if there's anything that you would like to ask me about that, feel free to ask or come up and visit. So
thank you. I'll follow up with you tomorrow, Peter, if that's okay. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Okay. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, so I think that's our meeting. Thanks for a great steering. We are fairly efficient. I was hoping that we'd be a 7 in front of this, but it is what it is. It certainly isn't the 11 that we did the last one. So a little funny thing, every time I tell my son that we're gonna have a quick meeting, he says, I'll see you at 11. So at least this time, I don't have to tell him that, so.
Great.
So everyone have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.